Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. The Gauteng Muslim Shura Council invites you to a Back to Basics series, a commentary on the poem Nadhm al-Akhdari, a Maliki Fiqh masterpiece by Sīdī Abdulqādir Mandla Nkosi.
Session 10.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Hamdan yuwafi ni'amahu wa yukafi'u mazida. اللهم صل وسلم بجميع الشؤون في الظهور والبطون على من منه شقت الأسرار وانفلقت الأنوار نبينا وحبيبنا محمد سيد الأبرار وعلى آله الأخيار وأصحابه والتابعين ومن تلا الأثار. سبحانك اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا الكتاب والحكمة وانفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا من فضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Now, Stubegala Pambili, Sienga Biki with our noble cause of learning and solidifying our basic ibadat, acts of worship. And we ask Allah to put ample barakah in these sessions and every other sessions wherein His countenance is sought. And we are reading from page 21. قال النظم شيخ عبد الله بن أحمد رحمه الله ونفعنا الله به وبكم آمين. Our poet Sheikh Abdullah, may Allah have mercy on him, may and benefit us through him and benefit us through you, says فضائل الوضوء. Fadail are meritorious or praiseworthy acts. These are actions which are recommended. They beautify one's wudu. Our poet says, وَنُدِبَتْ تَسْمِيَةٌ ثُمَّ السِّوَاكِ وَشَفْعُ مَغْسُولٍ وَتَثْلِيثٌ كَذَاكِ. It is recommended to say Bismillah and to brush the teeth and to wash twice or likewise 3 times. Now, it is recommended to begin every affair with Bismillah. And I think we have dived deep on the Basmala on the second session. So you say Bismillah, this will suffice. And of course, you may add Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim if you want. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said, La salata liman la wudu alah, wa la wudu liman lam yadhkur ismallahi alayhi. There's no salah for he who hasn't done wudu, and there's no wudu for he who doesn't mention the name of Allah. And the next fadila, meritorious acts, as-siwak, brushing the teeth. If you have the traditional miswak, the toothstick, then that's perfect. If not, then a toothbrush is also acceptable. And if all fails, it's also okay to use your finger to brush your teeth, making sure that there's no food and meat between your teeth. Using a miswak or a toothbrush is preferably done before wudu. And of course the finger you can use while rinsing your mouth in wudu. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam emphasized cleanliness, as we all know. And he also emphasized cleanliness for the teeth. He sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wasallam said, لولا أن أشق على أمتي, if it was not for the hardship being imposed on my ummah, لأمرتهم عند كل الصلاة بوضوء, I was going to command them to make wudu for every salah, ومع كل وضوء بالسواك, and with every wudu to brush their teeth. One of the questions that we have received, someone asked about the use of miswak before salah. Well, I see a lot of Hanafis and Shafis do it a lot while the muadhin is making the iqamah. But with us, siwak is for tahara, so it's done before wudu. Now, the poet carries on to say, وَشَفُعُ مَغْسُولٍ وَتَثْلِيثُ كَذَاكَ, washing for the second and the third time. And washing more than 3 times is israf, extravagance. You do not wash more than 3 times unless you realize that there's a part of your limb which still needs washing. Now a poet says, وَالْبَدُءُ مِنْ مُقَدَّمِ الْعُدْوِ, to begin with the front part of your limb. And it's meritorious to begin washing from your fingertips to the elbows for the hands, and from the forehead downwards for the face. The next fadila, وَأَنْ مَعَ فُرُودِهِ تُرَتَّبُ السُّنَنِ, and to follow the sequence of the sunnah acts as with the obligatory acts. Now, maintaining the order, sequence of the fara'id, the obligatory acts as revealed in the Quran, is sunnah with us, as mentioned earlier. Now, maintaining the sequence of the sunnah is a fadila, virtuous act. Waqilatul ma, and to use little amount of water without being wasteful. But with us, there's no set limit. And yes, we know the hadith which says, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم يتوضأ بالمد. That Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم used to make wudu with a certain measure. People are different sized. Some people are thin and some people are not so thin. So this is why our masters do not set a limit. The person is expected to limit himself to an amount of water enough to ensure that wudu is done efficiently. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam walked past Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas radiyallahu anhu while he was making wudu, using too much water. And he sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam asked him, why is he being so extravagant? And he advised him not to waste water. وَإِن كُنْتَ عَلَى نَهْرٍ جَارٍ, even if you are making wudu in a flowing river. So the practice of letting the water run while people take off their socks, watches and glasses and such is completely unacceptable. And the next fadila, وَأَنْ يُقَدِّمَ يُمْنَاهُ عَنْ يُسْرَاهُ فِي مَنْ فَصَمَ, to advance the right over the left for those limbs which come in pairs. And that is doing the right limbs before the left limbs for the hands and the feet. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said, إِذَا تَوَضَّأْتُمْ فَأَبْدَأُوا بِمَيَامِنِكُمْ. When you make wudu, begin with your right sides. And our poet says, وَتَخْلِيلُهُ أَصَابِعَ الْيَدَيْنِ الْفَرْضُ. To wash between the fingers is in fact an obligation. وَيُسْتَحَبُّ فِي الرِّجْلَيْنِ, and it is highly recommended for the toes. And the next fadila, وَفِي الْوُضُوءِ اللِّحْيَةِ الْخَفِيفَ خَلِّلْ. With regards to wudu, a light beard is to be penetrated through. A light beard is a beard through which the skin beneath is still visible. And if you have such a beard, then you have to make sure that the water goes through and touches the skin. And he says, وَفِي اغْتِسَالِكَ الْكَثِيفَةِ. But a mere wash if the beard is thick. For a thick beard, you merely wash over it. You do not have to comb through it in wudu with your fingers. And that is the position with us. We went through the obligatory acts of wudu, and we went through the sunnah acts of wudu, and now we just went through the recommended acts of wudu. Now let us have an upshot and look at the entire process of wudu. Firstly, you get a bucket filled up with pure and purifying water, and it's recommended to make wudu while seated, preferably facing the qibla. And it's always best to make wudu in a clean place. It's unfortunate that people make wudu in toilets nowadays. If you can avoid it, please do so. Now observe your niyyah, your intention, and it's in the heart, as we said. It is to intend to remove hadath, the state of minor impurity, or to make certain acts of worship permissible to do. And then you say Bismillah. And you lift the water container with your left hand and you pour onto your right hand. And you wash your hands to the wrist bone 3 times. And like the saying goes, izandla ziyagezana. Now that your hands are clean, you can now dip your right hand into the vessel, scoop, and put water into your mouth, brushing your teeth with your finger. And we did explain that using the prophetic toothstick is highly recommended. You rinse your mouth 3 times by shaking water in your mouth, and now using your right hand, you inhale up your nose some water, not too much of course, and exhale, blowing it out. Again, you do this 3 times. And now you wash your face from the hairline down to just below the chin, from ear to ear. And by ear to ear, we mean that small pointed eminence of the external ear, the tragus or the tragus, not sure with the pronunciation. So you wash your face 3 times and you move to your hands, beginning with your right hand. You wash it 3 times from the fingertips, remember that, to and including your elbows, making sure that water reaches between your fingers as well. Do the same to your left hand. And now you wet your hands. You do not scoop water. This time around, you just wet your hands and wipe your whole head from front hairline all the way to the back. And you return the wipe to the front where you started. And you wet your hands once again. And now you wipe your ears, the inside grooves and the external parts of the ear. And you do this once. Now you move on to wash your feet, beginning with your right foot from the toes to and including the ankles. Again, making sure that you wash between the toes. You wash your foot 3 times and move to the left foot and do exactly the same. And throughout this whole process, you don't talk to anyone and try to focus on your intention from start to finish. I think it's Sīdī Ahmad Zarruq who said a person's presence of heart in wudu has a lot to do with his presence of heart in salah. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said, "Man tawadda'a fa ahsana wudu." Whoever makes wudu and makes perfect wudu, ثم رفع بصره إلى السماء, and he raises his gaze to the sky, فقال, and he says, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له. I testify that there's no one worthy of worship except Allah, and He alone who has no partner. وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله, and I testify that Muhammad is His servant and His messenger. فتحت له ثمانية أبواب الجنة. 8 doors from Jannah open for him. يدخل من أيهن شاء, and he enters from any door that he wants. And Imam Tirmidhi adds that a person should also say, Allahumma ja'alni min at-tawwabin wa ja'alni min al-mutatahhirin. That, oh Allah, make me from amongst those who repent continuously and from amongst those who are purified and clean. Now that's the entire process of wudu. Next chapter, nawaqidul wudu, things which nullify wudu, things that break your wudu. Nawaqidul wudu ahdathun wa dhi bawlun wa gha'itun wa rihun wa madhi. The things which nullify wudu are impurities. Our poet, rahimahullah, begins by mentioning al-ahdath. These are occurrences or impurities that break wudu immediately when they occur. The first one is al-bawl, and that is urine. Umqamo breaks wudu instantly. Second one, al-gha'it, and that is feces, excrement. The third, passing wind, with or without sound. And the fourth one, al-madhi, and that is prostatic fluid. It is fluid that emanates when one is sexually aroused, be it through playing with your spouse or just thinking about it, or looking at what you're not supposed to be looking at. Imam Ali alayhi salam said, Kuntu rajulan madha'a. I was a man who used to constantly discharge prostatic fluid, and that's when he would play with Fatimatu Zahra alayha wa ala ahli baytiha salam. فَاسْتَحْيَيْتُ أَنْ أَسْأَلَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ, and I was too shy to ask the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam on what to do. فَأَمَرُتُ الْمِقْدَادَ بْنَ الْأَسْوَدِ فَسَأَلَهُ. So I sent Al-Miqdad ibn al-Aswad to ask, and he did. فَقَالَ فِيهِ الْوُضُوء, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, a person must make wudu. And that's the hadith in Bukhari. The riwayah Imam Muslim says, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, يَغْسِلُ ذَكَرَهُ وَيَتَوَضَّى. He washes his penis and he makes wudu. Now the fifth thing that breaks wudu immediately is wadyu. And it is also pronounced with a dhal, wadyu. And that's genital discharge. This is a viscous fluid that usually flows immediately after urine. But some people, it flows just before urine. Its ruling is like the ruling of urine. Now, if any of these impurities come out, your wudu is immediately broken. And another important thing to note is that in all the above mentioned instances, except for passing wind, a person must make istinja, and that is to remove impurities from the point of exit, using water preferably, or toilet paper would do. So you wash the entire penis for urine, prostatic fluid and genital discharge, and not the testicles. And you wash the exit point for feces. The poet carries on, وَأَسْبَابُ بِالنَّوْمِ ثَقُولًا. Now, asbab al-ahdath are things which are not impurities per se, but they are causes for losing wudu. And the first one, he says, بِنَوْمِ ثَقُولًا, and that is heavy sleep. Sleep is of 4 types. You have long and heavy sleep, nullifies wudu. Or you have short and heavy, it also nullifies wudu. Short and light sleep does not nullify wudu. And long and light sleep, of which it is merely recommended to make wudu. And the definition for heavy sleep, the ulama say, it's when a person is sleeping and if whatever is holding had to fall out of his hands, he wouldn't feel it. Or if you call out his name, you'll have to raise your voice and call more than once before he regains consciousness. And the next sabab, thing that causes a person to lose wudu, is sukr, drunkenness. Whether a person got drunk through something halal, like some medical injection, or through something haram, like alcohol and such. And the third thing that will cause wudu to be broken is wal-ighma, and that is fainting, falling unconscious. And the fourth thing is junoon, being affected by jinn or losing sanity. Our poet carries on and he says, وَقُبْلَةٍ وَلَمْسٍ إِن بِهِ قَصَدْ لَذَةً أَوْ وَجَدَهَا لَا إِن فَقَدْ. Kissing, touching the opposite sex, that is when one intends pleasure or when pleasure is derived regardless of the intention. With us, merely touching the opposite sex does not break wudu. There are conditions. If pleasure is intended, meaning you're touching the opposite sex, funuk kichimisi kazi, and you actually derive pleasure, then your wudu is broken. If pleasure is found, but it was not intended, still, again, wudu is broken. And if pleasure is intended, but not found, wudu broken still. And if pleasure is not intended, and indeed not found, in this case, wudu is not broken, the person still has his wudu. And the next thing that breaks wudu is qubala, kissing. And with us, the kissing that breaks wudu is the kissing on the lips. As for any other kiss, it will go back to what we just mentioned about touching the opposite sex. And our poet says, وَمَسْحِهِ ذَكَرَهُ بِبَطْنِ كَفٍ, touching his penis with his palm. أو إصبع أو جنيبه بمختلف, or touching his penis with his fingers or the sides of his fingers, of which there are different views. وشك في الحدث من بعد وضوء مستيقن إن لم يناكح ينقض. Being uncertain about impurity after having performed wudu, certain but unsure which one occurred first. Now, whoever is in doubt about his state of tahara, state of purity, meaning he is not sure whether he still has wudu or not, or he doubts whether he broke his wudu, or which one occurred first between the two, he should perform wudu and remove the doubt and put himself at ease. وَالْمَدْيُ مُجِيبُ لِلْغَسْلِ الذَّكَرِ. Genital discharge necessitates the washing of the penis, ذُو لَذَّةِ الصُّغْرَى بِكَ التَّفَكُّرِ, caused by experiencing slight pleasure due to daydreaming and imagining things. And he's talking about istinja, which we already spoke about earlier. Now we stop here. وصلى الله على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق والخاتم لما سبق نصر الحق بالحق والهادي إلى صراطك المستقيم وعلى آله حق قدره ومقدار العظيم. Alhamdulillah alladhi bi ni'matihi tatimmu as-salihat.